just talked about standing up to uh, the controlling authorities, which is like an aspect of being real. Um, do you suggest that new friends can become overtly rebellious to the systems in place, though they must learn to adjust or cope with them? So I don't know, what are your experiences with challenging the controlling authorities?
Well, again, it is a challenge because let's back up a few moments here. We've come into this life and previous lives. Let's just get real. The thing is that somebody out there at some time decided something, didn't they? Okay, they decided to, just like in the United States, look, the United States is a good example. All right, people came over from Europe, all right, and they were kind of marketed to do this in a way. It's very interesting. But anyhow, the basic idea is, so they come over to the United States and they start to do whatever they do. They wanted to get away from whatever. That was the idea, but that's the story that was told. But anyhow, so let's say they come over to the United States and they want to create a new position here. So they do. And little by little, they start creating their new position, right? So, and all of a sudden, voila, 13 colonies. Okay, so we kind of pivot off that idea. We just play this game here. It's kind of like a big Monopoly game. And so all of a sudden there's 13 colonies. And oh, people are getting together. Oh, we need to establish laws, rules, and regulations, et cetera. So little by little, and this is a takeover, and it's more than obvious. Hey, the Indians were here. They welcomed the individuals, but basically they were pushed aside. And that was the whole plan in the beginning. Well, and unbeknownst to a lot of people, but they just kind of went along with it. So what you have here is this constant creating of something and this constant agreement of that creation, those creations, right? And look at in the short time where we are, less than, let's just say 300 years. That is nothing compared to how long the world has been around and the dinosaurs have come and gone, okay? And just 300 years, that's like yesterday, that's like last week, last month, last year, whatever. And look at what it's come to. And what most people don't notice, again, what I realized as I went through what I did with Paul and came to this point, I could see that people do not recognize their intent. They have no idea what it is. They use the idea that, I have a soul, I am soul. Okay, that's cute, isn't it? There's no meaning, there's no recognition there. There really isn't. Just ideas. People carry around ideas. So things are what they are right now because of agreement. It's that simple. So people have agreed to authorities, they have agreed to restrictions, and it's almost like, give us more restrictions, okay? We love restrictions, okay? We love bad food, we love bad air, we like everything bad, okay? They don't say it that way, and they laugh and giggle about it, and if they're confronted, like what I'm doing with the world, confronting and making sense of something, it's like, how dare you? How dare you say that? Yes, and I've seen it on the real side. How dare you wake me up and see that? Well, we all came into creation for one reason. Yeah, so here we are, Charles, with all this agreement that we've come to know, and at the same time, no, we're not here to rebel against the system that we've agreed to. Does that make sense? So what we're going to do is we're just going to, those people that decide that are just going to keep hassling the same thing. They're going to come up against the same wall. Everybody's got their idea. So to me, it makes sense, create a new position, learn to recognize what is real and make sense with the whole of life. That's a toughie. And most people don't want to do that. I get it. They will do everything but do that. It's like trying to get your teenage kid to maybe clean up his room and take out the trash. We'll do everything else. We'll go play with his friends. We'll, go paint things on walls, we'll, run from the police, whatever, steal lunches from the other kids. We'll do everything but just simply take out the trash and clean up your room. You see, we'll do everything but. And this is how the personal self is. So, yes, this is the challenge for every person, to get real, to face themselves, and, look at what they keep agreeing to, thinking that something is going to resolve something. I just wrote a group on something, okay, is what I did. I try to cover the bases here to give people hints. And these are references to go by, not realities or absolutes. There is a difference. When you look at what has been created here with the so-called U.S. government, the corporation of the U.S. government, like Joni's corporation, okay, and the rules and regulations and the Constitution, that original piece of paper that's under glass somewhere that seems to be so precious, like the Dead Sea Scrolls. Does that give you a hint of something? All right, so, again, people, that becomes the authority, and people stamp that in their minds. They keep, and this is what they're protesting about. Well, we have rights and you're not giving us our rights. Well, I'm not protesting. I'm fine with all of it. I'm not here to redo the systems. You don't see the boys, in the Vatican, trying to convince the Pope to think differently. They're not interested. They're not, they're not bored with life. These people are boring. They don't want to hang around them. They don't want anything to do with them. They want a new position, a new adventure that makes sense with the whole of life, to become more aware, because they're on the same journey we are, to constantly become more aware and freer and less restricted of everything. See, so we're not here confronting the systems. No, that's like, me going to General Motors and saying, I don't like Chevys, I like Dodge. Why do you people exist? Why don't you just, go to the moon? Does that make sense? No, everybody has the right to create. And these people that have created all these things have the right to do so. But it's the individual, each person, that keeps deciding to agree with these ideas that makes it the restriction that it is. It's so funny, isn't it? It's that subtle. But you're thinking, oh no, that can't be it. Well, yes, it is it, because that's it. So again, it's in the doing and what makes sense. So my focus is the is, and then I've created these positions, worldwide educators and the new school and the university, the Vessel Project, etc., to demonstrate to people that, hey, we can create our own position that the real guides will relate to, they will agree to, that benefits everybody with their real awareness, and not just their personal self, but it will benefit that too. So there is no opposition to anything here. Just like I've said, nothing is negated. I'm not negating anything. I'm fine with what they're doing. I'm fine with what Reptilian is doing to the membership and the world, and even attacking us. I'm fine with that, because the challenge is to recognize more than that. And as you do, as you take on the challenge and you do recognize, then guess what? You no longer are the effect. You're okay, but we have to get through that. So yeah, it's a big challenge here. It is a toughie, all right? And it's not going to stop, until everybody agrees to what makes sense. But in the meantime, they're agreeing to what doesn't, and they have the right to do that. So yes, just like when Paul was here. Why do you think that there was just a certain number of people that came about? Because he was the real guide with the real guides. And that is that because not everybody's going to agree to making sense with their life according to the whole of life, which supports all of us. Once you recognize it and stand real with it, then you no longer have restriction, but you have more than what you can imagine as a real freedom. It's even better than that. Real freedom is a cute idea, but it gets better than that. Look at the sun shining. Do you see real freedom there? I see more than that. But again, each person decides their ideas. But here it's a literal world. We use this. But no, I'm for everything. I'm fine with everything because I respect the free will. We must have free will to be able to recognize the endlessness life is. You must have that free will. And so you go back and forth, but it's the choices that you make. And this is where the real guidance comes in, and that is to learn to recognize what is being demonstrated according to what life is and not what we think it is. All this self-conviction and all this authority worship that we've come through. Okay, you see it, you recognize it, you want to keep doing that, or you want to figure out something else that you cannot see, that is totally unknown, that you cannot define in any way. Will you do that? So, yeah, heck of a challenge, huh, Charles? No, I'm fine with everything. I've said it many times. And again, the authorities that these are all fear-based systems, they're more afraid than us. That's why there is fear in this world. That's why people are afraid to take the risk and become more aware. You know, they're just afraid to let go of their authorities because, again, they've been taught emotional attachment, etc. And this is what we see in the world. And through that, it all becomes reptilian tap lining, doesn't it? Because they've taken over. Well, there is a new day now, but only for those that see it. So again, you got to take the risk to be real. That's the fun part. Look at kids. They don't look to authorities. They look to their parents as guidance and support, but eventually they're indoctrinated to look to authorities. I pledge allegiance to the flag. Okay, you're going to pledge yourself to a flag? Does that make sense? But it's a cute little thing, isn't it? But again, yes, maybe you have to do it in school, but it's all about your intent and recognizing what's real. So we also have to deal with the systems. I was brought up through it too. That's why I didn't like it, and I quit because, again, I'd rather go surfing. I'm a surfer. So seeing the bigger picture, yes, I can see it, and I see it better than I did when I took the Rod of Power in 2001. So much better. But I had to come through a lot to define this and bring this to this point right now. And so for those that do take the time, you will be shown, you will see it. It's very subtle. And yeah, you still have to deal with the challenge. The world is not going to change for you. The chemtrail pilots are not going to stop flying until they agree to something that makes sense. So in the meantime, they have free will to do whatever they want. Yes, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. So all we can do is present something, create a real position that makes sense. And yes, it is the challenge. I don't expect people to agree. All I do is present it and see who will show up. And then from there, let's see what they will do, if they will get real and have the courage to do that. Go ahead, Charles. Thank you for asking.
Okay. Okay. I have another question. I would have asked this alone. I think the past weeks, but there's no time. Um, as long as we live in the regions of time and space, uh, we are subject to the law of karma, which is the law of cause and effect, and all that. And this, we know that this has kept us trapped in creation. And this karma arises from our choices, our decisions, agreements, preferences, and all that. Now, upon joining the new presentation, uh, we may learn to make better choices and therefore stop accumulating karma in principle. Now, what happens to the karma from past lives from joining the new presentation? So, does living in the ISSS just automatically give one a clean slate so that karma, which is subject to the laws of nature, uh, is overridden by by the real guides of what? So, I'd like you to talk a bit on this. What will happen? What happens to uh, karma we have accumulated? Because I see it's still affecting us here, but in principle, is supposed to have been maybe taken away by the real guides or something like that. So can you explain more, John?
Yes, thank you, Charles. The idea here, if everybody didn't hear it, is the law of karma and what's going on with this. And so, yeah, I appreciate you taking the time to figure out these questions because people need to know. And if you would mute, Charles, because we hear the buzz. Could you mute
Yeah.
also, Charles? Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that helps. Yeah, and we'll get this hammered out here. So. You know, karma is an interesting thing, and as people, you know, again, we're not taught this in the so-called, you know, schooling system that has been created here to, you know, formulate us into a certain way, you know, go through the system and then go out and get a job and just work, and for the system. So we learn from that. We, you know, at some point we decide to recognize that. And so as we keep searching, all of a sudden we start to hear this idea of karma. Well, it's thrown around a lot, even in the business world today. A lot of people, it's just taken for granted. Oh, that's good karma, that's bad karma, whatever. Again, the idea of karma, this reference is an idea, and it is a reality in cause and effect because everything is cause and effect in creation. It is a reality. So in the books, I do talk about karma, this and that, in different ways because I make it fun. It's an adventure, and I make what I say and the stories and etc. fun. But at the same time, I better define it. I see it as cause and effect because this is where we're at now. And yes, the old ideas of, okay, well, you know, the master will take your karma and this and that. And this is so also. But again, it's the authority idea, isn't it? It's like, you know, you want the government to do something for you. You look to the authority to do something for you. And that's understandable because this is how this system has been set up. So if I send a check in for my new driver's license or passport, hey, I expect the government to send me, you know, the passport or driver's license back. So I am looking to the authority there too. That makes sense with dealing it. I'm not going to print my own because then, you know, if I do get pulled over, you know, the police are going to run it and they're going to find out that, hey, this idea isn't valid according to their system. So I play along with the system also. So I'm not going to be doing that. And I'm not going to be printing my own money and things like that too, because the system is set up a particular way. But there are other ways to do things. And so the karma idea is very interesting. And as Rebazar has said recently, there's no karma, all right? There's no more karma because everything now is recognition. So past lives or whatever, everything is now. There is no past, there is no future, there's only now. Even the present of what is taking place is of a particular, and that's not what I'm referring to. Yes, in creation, you have the ideas of past, present, and future, but the isness life is not that. And so you decide what position to work from. So it's kind of like you're standing on the ground and you're effective everything, or you're in a helicopter and you got the bigger view and you can go anywhere. It's kind of like that with your real awareness, but at the same time, you have operations on the ground. So realistically, there is no karma, but here's the idea. You can think that, oh, okay, well, there's no karma, so that means I can do whatever I want. Yes, you can. You can do whatever you want, but you'll still get karma. It's kind of humorous, isn't it? So figure that one out. The thing is that realistically, with the isness, there is no karma. But yes, if you want to be silly and foolish, there still is karma. So, but the old burden of, well, you have past life karma and you have this stuff, and that's going to be referred to you sometimes, etc., because it's just how you relate to it and see it, and the voice will use that sometimes accordingly, because really what we're being shown here in the real side is to face ourselves and to see ourselves and what we're deciding until we can figure out what the isness is and stand in a real position. In other words, standing in the real position is a recognition. So yes, karma does exist. So, if if I'm speeding down the street or whatever, or I throw a rock into a window, that's a liability for me. I that is karma. Okay, that is karma for me. But what we're referring to here is the experiences that we've gone through, no matter what it is in past lives, no matter what it is, good, bad, or indifferent. We've been killed, we've killed others, we've done all kinds of things, all right, just like what's going on in the world today. But when you come to that point where you've been through that boot camp, that part of the boot camp, and you are 100% willing to go through whatever it takes to be real, well, then the boys step in, and just like your dad, pays for that speeding ticket, okay, and takes care of it, you see? But you got to earn that position with a real, true sincerity, and you got to prove it. But that's the best part, because you want to be a real person. You don't want to be somebody that, unless you want to be, that just looks to authorities and feels good about their life, and that's it. Is it just about feeling good? Myself, I see myself graduating from all of this. I don't want to stay stuck as just a human person with 5 bodies and feelings and emotions and personal love and all these things. Look at the sun shining. I don't see any of that there. And guess what? That's a reflection, a pale reflection of what the isness is. I see it. I know what it is. But at the same time, I have to deal with this. But I don't want to be subject to, forever, you might say, to these 5 bodies. And so for the most part, people are just chasing thrills. And yes, they are making karma on a daily basis because they keep agreeing to it. But realistically, with the isness, when you recognize it, there is no karma. It's all done. It's all done. It's all gone. That's the end result. But you decide, all right? And that's the risk taker. That's the razor's edge. And so now you can think that, oh, Duane said this or that. Well, it's true. But again, you have to recognize that position. You have to stand real, and you have to face it. You have to deal with it. Will you do that too? Will you get past that personal self? There's a lot to it, to have no karma, but there isn't any according to the whole of life. But when we look at creation, oh yeah, you got to deal with it. So you figure out the two. So in Paul's day, as an example, I just use that because it's easier. It's a culmination of things. Instead of going way back to Rumi or Jesus or somebody else, we don't want to get too distorted here with all those cute little stories. But we come into the present time, and Paul created a God worlds chart. And I remember that in the different levels, the up and down, and this and this and this. Well, it's a literal version. And that really becomes very confusing to many people. But then again, many people have become emotionally attached to the ideas there and the words and what he used at the time. And he really, for the most part, took the words that already existed from other paths and put them on there, like, Ekshar and the Nami and all these things. Ekankar, even the word Ekankar already existed. He just picked it up and took it. You see, because he brought it all together. He created that relationship. He babied people along. And so people are emotionally stuck to that, and the ideas and the old karma stuff, the ball and chain idea of karma. Well, you want to be there? You want to think these things are cute? Well, all of that reference that he created relates to that. So until you can separate yourself to see what that reference really is, you're going to be thinking that it's a particular, and so you create your situation. But I'm saying with the isness life is, there is no karma. You don't even have to consider it, but just watch your steps. So in other words, if you're speeding down the street and the cops catch you, well, you're going to get that ticket unless you can talk them out of it, you see? Unless you're a good talker, etc., or you pull out the Constitution, you got it all rolled up in your back seat. And if the cop agrees, see, it's all about agreement. So it's a heck of a challenge here, isn't it? Yeah, so you got to sometimes bring your filing cabinet with you when you're driving down the street, because anything can happen. And driving's a huge liability, huge. That's why you've got so-called insurance, but does that cover everything? So you see, what I've done is that just like in the beginning of many of the books that I've written, I've specified that I am rewriting history, and that is that this is the new history we are making, that where the individual can become more aware and learn to make better choices so they aren't encumbered and restricted by the system, but at the same time, while in the system, learn to be creative and deal with it. And guess what? Yeah, your things are going to happen. It's just like when you go out there and work. You come home, you take a shower, right? It's not that you're not going to get dirty. I was in construction for 40 years, a general contractor with 3 licenses in California. I loved the hard work. I really did. I worked so hard. I had to push myself every day. I could barely walk, but you know what? I love doing it. And I love doing this. This is its own challenge, and it wears me out every day. I have to take naps, etc., because this little physical body takes on a lot, especially with the galactic stuff I'm doing, etc. So there you have it, Charles. There is a definition, and so people need to take, excuse me, people need to take the time to see the difference from their personal self, their personal life, their real awareness, what creation is, and what life, the whole of life is, this isness. And it has nothing to do with whatever a person can consider, because you cannot consider it. So you got to figure that part out. No one can figure it out for you. That's the best adventure of all. And it's right here, right now for you. But will you take the time to do it? So again, there is no karma unless you want it. You got it.